Great. Okay. Thank you everybody for coming. I'd like to thank Kyle for the opportunity to say a shiur. Here we go. So as you see, the title of the shiur is Practical Kabbalah and Practical Halacha. And we're going to try to go through select cases in the Mishnah Berurah which are seemingly out of place for a sefer which is dedicated to Halacha L'Maisa.
Obviously move the tables together. Should we put the table together, or
one of the makomas and maximum music, maximum tarab? Thank you very much. Okay.
we got to square it off, otherwise I'm going to have a problem.
Okay, so I want to discuss select cases that we find throughout the Mishnah Berurah, which are seemingly out of context, out of place for a sefer which is dedicated to Halacha L'Maisa. We're not going to discuss, I'm not coming to say every single case in the Mishnah Berurah today which we're going to discuss in Yom of Halacha, of Kabbalah. I don't think I'm an encyclopedia we know every case. Just a couple cases that I've come across throughout the Mishnah Berurah. It was interesting when I told people about the topic of this year, and I said we're going to discuss practical Kabbalah and practical Halacha, cases from the Mishnah Berurah. Every person gave me, or people who had tell me, oh, you're going to speak about this, speak about that. People had all different types of things. Are you going to speak about why we cut our nails in different order, why we have black stripes on the tallis? People gave me all types of things that I could speak about. So those are all very good topics. I had a couple other things in mind which particularly piqued my interest, and I hope to speak them out with you today. So we're going to start with the Mishnah Berurah on the first page of the booklet, number 1, Mishnah Berurah and Hilchos Tefillah. Mishnah Berurah and Siman Nun Hey, the halachos over there are discussing who is able to be mitzaref for a minyan. We know we need 10 Jews for a minyan, and who qualifies for a minyan. All of a sudden, in the middle, the Mishnah Berurah throws in one line, and he says as follows: Adam hanotzar, they sefer yitzira, a man who's created through sefer yitzira, im mitzaref l'yud, if he can count for a minyan, u'l'chol davar shebekedusha, if he can count for a minyan, ayin shuvas v'cham tzvi, siman tzadi gimel. So, what we call this guy a golem, someone who's created through Kabbalistic forms. If he can count for a minyan, look at the shuvas v'cham tzvi and see what he says. He has a suffix about it. So, I still brought down that Rabbi Alev, the son of the Chafetz Chaim, the son of the Mishnah Berurah, was learning his father's sefer, and he comes across this line in the Mishnah Berurah, and he approaches his father, and he says, "Hey, Legatata, I don't understand. You're writing a sefer which is halacha l'dayris. You're trying to put down halacha l'maisa for nowadays. Why did you write this in your sefer?" It's an interesting question. It was applicable maybe in times of the Gemara, maybe the Lashalavai, when Rabbi Kedusha was higher again, it'll be applicable. Why did you choose to write this halacha in your sefer? So the Mishnah Berurah, the Chafetz Chaim, tells his son that you're right. It's not so applicable halacha l'maisa. I'm not really concerned that someone's going to walk into shul and we're going to think he's a golem, and we want to know if he can count for a minyan or not. The reason why he brought down this halacha is only to be machazik, the tzimima te'emuna, the simple and pure faith in the hearts of us as Klal Yisrael, that we need to recognize, we need to remember that there is such a concept, that Chachmas HaTorah, even in this profane, mundane world, could uplift a person to such a madrega that he would have the capabilities of being able to create a person, a golem, so to speak, through Sefer Yitzira. Is it going to be halacha l'maisa? The Mishnah Berurah knew it wasn't going to be halacha l'maisa, but he wanted to make sure he codifies it in the Mishnah Berurah in order to remind ourselves that this is a madrega which is attainable even in this world. So based on this hakdama, I wanted to go through some of these the basics of this shiloh, what it's dependent on, and then from there to discuss other cases. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin, which is number 2 in the booklet, recounts the following. It's in the bracketed area. We'll quickly read it and just to speak out the main idea of the Gemara. Rava says that if tzaddikim wanted to, they have the capabilities of creating the whole world. The exact parameters of that we'll maybe discuss a different time. That's not for now. But they have capabilities that are similar to what we found that Hashem created the world. So tzaddikim, who are on a very high level, are also able to do that. The Gemara continues that Rava went ahead, or some Girsus have Rabba went ahead and created a person. He was Bora Gavra, and he sent it as a present. It seems like he sent it, for some reason, he sent it to his friend Rav Zera. This creature, we'll call him a Goylam, approaches Rav Zera. Rav Zera sees this person and I guess tries to give him a Shalom Aleichem, engages in a conversation, and this being, this Goylam, does not respond at all. And Rav Zera discerns from that fact, the fact that the person couldn't respond. He says, "Oh, you must be from one of the creations that my friends have created. Go back to your dust." And seemingly Rav Zera killed this being just by muttering something to it. The Gemara continues that Rav Chanina and Rav Oishia would sit every Friday afternoon and they would learn Sefer Yetzirah together. They would create a young calf and enjoy it for the Shabbos Suda. And that's the end of the Gemara for what we need right now. So we just see from this fascinating Gemara that here we have our typical Amoraim. These are not strange Amoraim never heard of before. This is regular Rava, Rav Zera, Rav Chanina, Rav Oishia, our regular Amoraim who are constantly giving us Sivrei Halacha throughout Shas. We're not just Baki in Peres HaNigla, they were Baki in Peres HaNisar. And the Gemara there very clearly states that the way Rav Chanina and Rav Oishia created their Iglos, also they created their animal for Shabbos, was through the Sefer HaYetzirah. How did Rava create his person? So Rashi keys us in on that. Rashi on the second wide line towards the bottom, and Rashi says that Rava was Bara Gavra Ayadei Sefer Yetzirah. Rava also created a person through Sefer Yetzirah, and Rashi explains, well, how did he do that? They learned certain different permutations of Hashem's name, and through that Rava was able to create a person. Okay, so we're getting keyed in that Sefer Yetzirah is the Sirufei Hashemish, the various permutations of Hashem's name, and that was the key, that was the secret to Rava creating a person and Chanin and Rav Oishia creating an animal. Now, why couldn't this being speak? So the Maharsha and others explain that the Koach HaDibur that we human beings have is a neshama, that is a spiritual force from the Eibishter, and that only the Lord is capable of implanting in us, and therefore, even as great as Tzaddikim are, says the Maharsha, Rava and anybody, according to the Maharsha, creates a being, Adei Sefer Yetzirah, will not be able to give the being a Koach HaDibur because you cannot implant with it a spiritual essence. It's only a Ruach Chiyuni, the Maharsha says. It's just like a life being that you can put into it, similar to a behemoth, and that's how he explains how Rav Zera was permitted to kill it, because it was just like an animal that was getting in his way, and if necessary, a person is allowed to kill an animal if it's bothersome to him. So Rav Zera felt there's no purpose to this creature being in his way, and he was just able to eradicate it from the world. Okay, so that's the basic Gemara. This is the source where we see in the Gemara that the Amoraim and Tzaddikim are capable of creating people, Goyim, through Sefer HaYetzirah. Now, there are many issues. I have 7 Sveikos, which I saw in a lot of spots. There's many more. I'll just quickly speak out. We're not going to focus on any of them right now, but I just want to just broaden the discussion, what it's capable of speaking about. One halacha that the Poskim discuss is a Goyim. Again, this person, we're just going to call him a Goyim for easy purposes, is a Goyim chayav in mitzvahs. Is he a full-fledged Jew? Number 2, when the Goyim dies, does he have tumas meis? Is he metana ba'oil? Number 3, is it mutter for a woman to be misyached, to be in seclusion with the Goyim? Number 4, if the Goyim is walking on the street and finds a lost object and picks it up, who gets to keep it? The Goyim or the owner, the person who created the Goyim? Or similarly, number 5, if the Goyim damages somebody, went ahead and hurt somebody, who's responsible to pay for those damages? Do we find the Goyim, so to speak, or do we find the owner, the creator of the Goyim? Number 6, could you create or kill a Goyim on Shabbos? Is it considered such a living being that either creating it will be a style of moiled or killing it will be a style of shchita on Shabbos? Or number 7, if the Goyim behemoth, if you create this animal like Rav Chanina of Oishia did, does it require shchita? Is it a full-fledged kosher animal? All the parameters of the kashrut of such an animal. So all these are very fascinating questions. We're not going to discuss them today because Mishmur doesn't discuss them. And our focus here is to discuss the cases from Mishmur discusses. So we're going to stick to the Chacham Tzvi's topic. Again, is he mitzaref to a minion or not? One fascinating marmokim which I came across in the Rishonim, which I think sheds light on a lot of questions that are, again, that we're not really discussing, but just one marmokim is the Rashba in Shuvas has a long Shuvah discussing various Chachmas HaKabbalah and different interesting things that people could, or tzaddikim are capable of doing, and he says, however, if you make dike the Gemara carefully, he says, you see, of Chanina of Oishia, when did they learn Sefer Yetzirah? When did they create their animal? On Friday. Why is Friday important? Because he says the Chachmas from Sefer Yetzirah, which is the Chachmas HaTorah, which gives tzaddikim the ability to create beings, is only going to work on the day which Hashem did it during Pesach May Bereshit. So Chanina of Oishia were only capable of making an animal on the 6th day of the week, Friday, because animals are created on the 6th day, which would lead me to assume that Rava or anybody else who's creating a Goylam can only create it on the 6th day of the week, also because we were created on the 6th day of the week. Interesting concept. If someone ever tells you he's making a Goylam on Monday, you already know something's amiss with his behavior. Where is the Rashba? In Chelik Al Taf Yud Gimel, 413. Possibly, right. Rashba is not giving us, what it just says. The reason why they create on Friday is because you can only create it on Friday because that's when Hashem created. That leads you to assume that you can only create each thing you want to create can only be on that specific day of creation. Okay. Well, let's. I didn't make photocopies of Sefer Yeshira for many reasons. One of them is because I don't own one. Another reason is because we're not going to get really involved in the nitty-gritty details of Sefer Yeshira, but just a basic overview of Sefer Yeshira. The Sefer discusses various tirufei shemis, different permutations and different things, so to speak, we could do with the oisius of the Aliphes and the Shem Hashem and their capabilities. The Sefer we have in the Messiah brought down from the Shla and others that the author of the Sefer Yeshira is Avram Avinu. So this is going back quite a long time, about 4,000 years or so, approximately 3,500 years or so, back to Avram Avinu. It's quite an old book, and it really discusses the various spiritual makeups of our physical world. It's very fascinating in theory to discuss it, but as we'll soon get to, the Poskim very strongly warn us against trying to use its formulas and using its calculations to do things that we think we would like to do. So let's start with... No, why does not say? Possibly because he just felt he's in his way, he doesn't need him, then... Right. That's a good Ma'amokim. I'll share a quick Ma'amokim, which I didn't really want to speak out, but I think it answers the question a little bit. If you remember, it spoke out to two gears in the Gemara. Was it Rava created the Goyim or Rabbah? We should have the gears of Rabbah. Why might that be important? Because the Gemara Megillah Zayin on Beis tells us that Rabbah killed Rav Zeir. There's a whole story there that they had a Purim suit together that got drunk. Rabbah got up in his drunken stupor and killed Rav Zeir. Says the Magaliyas Hayam, and then what happened? The Gemara there says that next year Rava, this is the Mason, he revives Rav Zeir, and the next year he invites Rav Zeir back, and he tells Rav Zeir, don't worry, you can come back to my suit. Rav Zeir says, no, not every year miracles happens, I'm not coming back again, I don't want it, that ordeal is too much for me. So the Magaliyas Hayam suggests that Rabbah sent this Goyim to Rav Zeir to tell him, don't worry about it, you can come back, I'm capable of creating beings. Don't worry, I'll do Tchiyas Mason again, it's no big deal. I'm on the Madrega, but I can do this to you. And so Abdeir responded to Rava by killing this guy and saying, no. This is not a real person, this is a little fake, this is, so to speak, a fake out, because he doesn't speak, and just by saying certain things, by talking to him in a certain fashion, whatever exactly words Abdeir uttered to him, he was able to fall into a pile of dust, so Abdeir very politely declined Rabba's invitation for the second year of the Purim party. Okay, but if you go with that side, we can understand why Abdeir killed it, just to show Rava back, that he's also capable. Right. Okay, right. Okay. The Shulchan Aruch, which is number 3 on these sheets over here, Shulchan Aruch in Yeridea, Siman Kuf Ayin Tes, says the following. Someone who wants to do a Meiser, which is, very, loosely translated as some type of magic trick that, are, what's the word, an illusion. Illusion to the eye is forbidden. That's a whole discussion unto itself what the parameters of that halacha is, but we'll accept that for now, that illusions of the eye are prohibited from doing, because people might think you're doing acts of sorcery. However, says the Shulchan Aruch, they say for Yitzira, doing actions through the Sefer Yitzira is permissible, and there are more fears dice, and more ends off, a few last nights, even to do something practically through Sefer Yitzira is permissible. So a simple reading of the Shulchan Aruch seems to tell us over here, that it's permissible for a person to buy himself a Sefer Yitzira, read through it, if he understands it, let him practice the things that it talks about in there, and he can have a great day. But a quick glance in the Poskim, specifically the Shach over here, which is on the page of Shulchan Aruch, and other Poskim over here, very strongly warn us against this. I'm not going to read the whole Shach through inside, but the Shach, the first part of the Shach is quoting a Levush. Levush is one of the earliest Achronim, precedes the Shach, and Levush warns very strongly against improper usage of Sefer Yitzira. He says it's true that Sefer Yitzira is amazing in its capabilities of showing the godless of Hashem and the amazing koyach that there is in the Torah, and it's really impressive. But using it not for the purpose of Kiddush Hashem or tzarich mitzvah rabbah is very dangerous. And he proves even from Yeshaya Hanavi, the Gemara, we're not going to go through the whole Gemara now, but the Gemara in Yevamot discusses Yeshaya Hanavi when he's running away from Menashe, used Sefer Yitzira to make himself into a tree and hide himself from Menashe. And he got, the Menashe's men figured it out, they chopped down the tree, and that's how Yishai died. Pretty gruesome story. He was severely punished, according to the Bush and others, because he used Sefer Yetzirah for his own personal benefit of hiding himself. So we see already Shai Hanavi was punished and killed by using Sefer Yetzirah for his own personal benefits, and the Shach ends off that quotes the Mishnah on Pirkei Avos in the first parak with the Ishtamish B'taga Cholak, someone who uses the crown of Torah will be cut off from this world. There's various pshatim what this means. The Shach quotes the Ramah later on, which the Rav in Mishnah also brings it down that this is referring to somebody who uses Sefer Yetzirah, uses different Shemas HaKadoshim. It's playing with fire, and he might end off in an unhappy ending. So the Shach Halacha L'Maisa ends off that the last couple words he says, Al-Kain HaMoinea Yivorach, someone who withholds himself and withdraws himself from using these Tirufim Hashemis and does not practice what it says in Sefer Yetzirah will be blessed. So the Shach Halacha L'Maisa is very strongly warning against usage of Sefer Yetzirah. Now,
it's called Osher Tetzah Nine.
It's not called, meaning because you're creating. Osher Tetzah Nine is one category, but now.
But Sefer Yetzirah of what? Of Osher Tetzah Nine?
No, it's not. It's not two separate halachas. I mean, you're creating something which is not technically real because you created it. So there is a similarity between that and an illusion, which you can do through Kishuf or through other types of sorcery. But it's not sorcery. That's the whole Gemara to itself. Why Sefer Yetzirah is different than Kishuf.
And Aaron Avinu created his house for the guy.
Right, that's another pshat. Okay, yeah, we're not going to discuss it right now. That's Adam Mishnah Berurah range. We're trying to stick with the Mishnah Berurah. I have one question I had on the Shach, which I don't have an answer to, at least an adequate answer to, which I think is a good question on the Shach. The Shach passed like this, and this is how we accept the Halacha L'Maisa. However, the Chidah was a great Sfadi Paisik, wrote over 70 Sfarim. One of the Sfarim he wrote was called Shem HaGedolim, where he gives short biographical ideas or notes about various Gedolim that preceded him, Rishonim, Achronim, and he writes very interesting things about different Gedolim. He writes about the Shach as follows. The Shach passed away at a young age of 41. In those short years, he authored a tremendous pirush on what we have on Yeridea, Shulchan Aruch Yeridea, and Chayshim Mishpat, and many other Sfarim. There's a sefer called Tak B'Kayin. The Shach wrote in 1 month. He wrote a tremendously deep sefer on the one whole sugya about Messiah of Tak B'Kayin. The Shach was a prolific author. There are other Sfarim that he wrote that we had lost. Most of those Sfarim the Shach wrote in his early 20s. He writes in the Shach writes this in the Akdama. The Shach had tremendous bekiyas. He goes through when he wants to argue with a Levush, he wants to argue with a Marshal, he can sometimes quote 16 poskim against them. He'll go on and on with his list. Says the Chidah, how did the Shach have such a great bekiyas? Now, of course, the answer to that is that he sat and he learned. But, writes the Chidah, that he also had a secret weapon. One of the secret weapons of the Shach, writes the Chidah, was he had a Shem Mitzvah, a name of Mitzvah, of finding things. It doesn't tell you what it is. I don't know what it is and how to use it. But it says that the Shach had a Shem Mitzvah, and the words he writes is that he used that Shem, Limtzai Habikiyos Sheroitza Tekef Umiyad. The Shach was able to get the Bikiyos needed immediately. Now, I have a suffix what the Chidah means. Does he mean that the Shach was able to use the Shem as a search engine, like Google, so to speak, Kiviyachol, that if he needed to look up any Ma'amokim, he would type in, Sugya of Hana Isur Hana, whatever. And any Ma'amokim he needed would come up. Or was like an instant recall button that anything he had ever learned about that Sugya, he needed to record, just use that Shem and brought it all back. Whichever way you learned the Chidah, I don't know. But it's seemingly clear that the Shach used a Shem Kodesh for the benefit of Limud HaTorah. Now, you could say that wasn't for personal benefit, that was for the benefit of Klal. So without the Shach, our Shulchan Aruch learning of Yeridea and Chayshim Mishpat will be very severely limited. Nonetheless, though, according to the Chidah, the Shach did use a Shem Kodesh for certain purposes. So, although the Shach does pass here in Shulchan Aruch, and this is the halacha that we are severely warning against those people and the dangers involved in using different Shemas Hashem to do certain quote-unquote miracles, nonetheless, just an interesting note that the Shach himself, according to the Chidah, did use it. Okay, let's go back to our topic of conversation here. Main topic of conversation, which is the Tshuva of the Chacham Tzvi, which is number 5 on the next page. Let's quickly recap the Tshuva of the Chacham Tzvi and his suffix. So he starts off that I have a suffix, he says, a person who's created through the Sefer Yetzirah, which we just spoke out. Rava did this, the Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Chacham Tzvi further writes that his grandfather, Rav Eliyahu, the Av Bezdin of the town of Chelm was a famous town for many reasons, but at one time it had a great Rav, the grandfather of the Chacham Tzvi, also created a Goylem, he writes. The Chacham Tzvi writes his grandfather created a Goylem. And he says he has a suffix, could he be mitzaref for a minion or not. What's his two studim? He says, number one, the start to say not is that the pasuk we learn out, v'nikdashti b'toich b'nei Yisrael. In order to say Dvarim Shebekdusha, has to be amongst b'nei Yisrael, and we darshan, you need a minion, you need 10 people. So this person, this being, Goylam, was not part of Klal Yisrael, so to speak. He's not a Yerach Imoy, right? He's not a Yelud Isha. He's not a child born out of a normal childbirth. So therefore, side one would be not to include a minion. Then he brings another Gemara, very fascinating Gemara in Sanhedrin New Testament days, where the Gemara brings a pasuk which says the list of 5 sons of Michal. Michal Bas Shaul, Michal was the daughter of Shaul, the wife of David, and the pasuk lists that she had 5 sons. The Gemara asks, it's not true. Michal didn't have 5 sons. Meirav, a different wife of David, had those 5 sons. So why does the pasuk list them as being the sons of Michal? So the Gemara answers, it's true, Meirav physically gave birth to them, but the pasuk puts them under Michal's name because Meirav died young, unfortunately, and Michal raised all these 5 boys. Since she raised them, they're called on her name. Says the Gemara, Mikan, we see from here, anyone who brings up an orphan in their house, Mala of a cusp of Kilu Yolda. You give them Mala as if you gave birth to them. So the Chacham takes that from here, and Yosef Engel and the Gilin Asas is the same idea, that Maisi Yedem Tel Tzadikim, the offspring of the actions of Tzadikim, are Hein Tol Doiseyem, and therefore he says that would allow us to have a suffix, that's a Tzadik, should be the star for a minion, because this Goylam, this being was created by a Tzadik, and it's considered the offspring of the Tzadik, and therefore he says, possibly it should be able to be mitzvah, should be counted as 10. So again, the first option that should not be good for minions because Plus says needs Nikdashi B'nei Yisrael, has to be a regular flesh and blood child, so to speak. Option 2 is that since it's created by a tzaddik, we give it some existence of being a offspring of a tzaddik, and therefore maybe it could be included in B'nei Yisrael. That's the suffix. Now, it's an interesting question, but the Chacham Tzvi himself, if he continues through the tshuva, says it's pashut that he can't be mitzaref, and one of the rights he brings, like our flowing pointed out before, that Abder killed it. And Abder is not a murderer, chas v'shalom, so Abder killed him, that shows that it's not really a being of flesh and blood, it's not a regular being that we can take account for a minion. Therefore, it says the Chacham Tzvi concludes his tshuva by writing that it's pashut to him that this goyim cannot be mitzaref for a minion. So now this led me to the following question. The Chacham Tzvi has a tshuva, short tshuva, 2 paragraphs. He starts off with the suffix, gives us the question, the 2 studim, the 2 possibilities, why yes, why not. And then he says it's pasha that it's not, and he ends the tshuva saying, halacha l'maisa, the goyim cannot be mitzvah for the minion. Case closed. If it's so straightforward, why does the Mishnah Berurah leave us hanging? Why is the Mishnah Berurah right? If you have a shayla about a goyim being mitzvah for a minion, look in the tshuva Chacham Tzvi where he has a suffix. It's not true. The Chacham Tzvi doesn't leave off with the suffix. He started with the suffix. He started with the question. But the Chacham Tzvi answered this question by saying that he can't be mitzvah. So why doesn't the Mishnah Berurah tell us the psak, halacha l'maisa? Very good. This is a ride to the story we started with. The Chavetz Chaim was not interested in giving us a psak over here because this shayla is not going to be halacha l'maisa. That's not the point of writing this line. This one-liner in the Mishnah Berurah was not for the shayla, for the psak of it per se. It's not for the outcome of it per se. It's just for the shayla to ma'or the question in the heart of Klal Yisrael that we should contemplate and realize that this concept exists. We shouldn't forget that nowadays, unfortunately, we're living in a fill-in-the-blank world where it's full of all types of shmutz and gashmis, and we're so far removed from doing things al pi kedusha v'tzahara. But the Mishnah wanted to remind us that there's such a shayla exists and such a concept exists in halacha that a person could be created. So I think that deek in Mishnah, I think, really proves the story. The story is hearsay, so to speak. If they say over from the son of the Mishnah, Rabbi Aleid. But I think the deek in Mishnah is gold. That's why Mishnah leaves it as a suffix. It doesn't pass it for us. It's just interesting, in the next tshuva over here, which is the son of the Chacham Tzvi, the Sheila Yavitz, he continues the suffix, he continues the shayla of his father, and he also comes out with the same conclusion. He has another raya, brings another proof that a goyim cannot be mitzvah for minion. But he ends off the last paragraph over there in number 6, the last paragraph starts off Agav. He says he just wants to end off with a side point that his father told him, whatever happened to that goyim that his grandfather created. We started off saying that the Chacham Tzvi's grandfather was also a tzaddik on such a level that for whatever reason created a goyim. So it's interesting, he brings down that his father told him that the goyim that his grandfather created, shortly afterwards his grandfather decided he had to kill it, he had to get rid of it, because he felt it was going to be destructive and wreak havoc on the world. So he the process of killing a goylem, it seems like you have to remove the Shem Hashem, the different, however you put the Shem Hashem on its forehead, you have to remove it in some type of process. In that process, Rav Eliyahu, the Abbez of Chel, by removing the shame, got into a struggle with the goylem, and the goylem seemed to have scratched him and left him with a scar. So even the goylem couldn't really listen to its master, it seems like, and although he did kill it at the end, so to speak, it did take its shame away, but it left him with a scar for the rest of his life, which I think is interesting. Another reason why not to create a goylem in case he gets into a fight with you, you might not end up in such good shape. Just to end off the part one, discussion about goylem, there are various legends of various goylem, specifically the Maharal who created the goylem. I'm not getting into all the historical debate whether it is true or it's not true, but I saw an interesting quote from Meir Arik. Meir Arik was one of the great poskim of the Hasidic Welt, end of the 1800s, before World War I, or a lot of trubis. And Talmidim asked him, Rebbe, can you tell us, did the Maharal really create a goylem or not? Now, Meir Arik never told the Maharal. He came about 250 years after Maharal. Maharal was the mid-1500s. But Meir Arik said, you know what? I don't know. It's not such a pellet to me if the Maharal created a goylem or not. He was a great Talmid Chacham. What's a bigger pellet to me, what's a bigger Mila, that the Maharal had such a Talmud like the Tosfos Yontif, who anybody who learns Mishnayos was blown away by the breadth of the knowledge of a Tosfos Yontif. Yontif was the chief disciple, the main student of the Maharal. He says, the Maharal to be minded, one Talmud, as though you the Tosfos Yontif, that's a much bigger nace than even creating a goylem. So the Kedari Oilam, the place were not blown away if someone has the capabilities of creating a goylem or not. It happens to be it's a great thing. I don't know how to do it, and I never met one yet. But that's not the kunst of learning Torah. The kunst is learning Torah, and being made in the depth of Torah Sena Kedosha, whether you create a goylem or not. Just one last nekuda on this. I saw an interesting diak. There's a paper called Kliyos Eid Voisecha. He says, he quotes many different shilas about a goylem, but he says, interesting, why was the Chacham Tzvi only bothered by this shilah? Why was he only bothered by the shilah of the minion? Why wasn't he bothered with all the other shilas, like we asked before, about if he's a regular yid, is he Mekam Ba'oil, could you kill him, all the other questions? Why did the Chacham Tzvi limit his discussion only to a minion? So he suggests that if you look in the Gemara in Brachos, on that Mem Zayin, I think it is, Mem Zayin, the Gemara there lists various Havaminas. The Gemara has various possibilities of different beings and different people that can count for a minion, even though they're not Gedolim, they're not over 13. The Gemara discusses even in Aron Kodesh with the Sefer Torah in it, there's a possibility that it can count for the 10th man. The Gemara says two Talmid Chacham that are talking Divrei Halacha and are being Machadesh, a new Chiddush Torah. The Gemara has a Havamina that can count for 3 people, even though there's only 2 physical people here. The Gemara has various Havaminas for what could create for a minion. The Chiddush itself, that cloud of Torah thought, maybe could, now the Gemara rejects all these possibilities. But this Sefer wants to suggest that since you see the Gemara goes so far to suggest even non-physical beings, so to speak, could count for a minion, possibly even that's why the Chacham Tzvi was only mistapic, only had a doubt about this shiloh and not other shilohs in Halacha. Okay, that ends part 1 about goylem. The next halacha, which was intriguing to me, in the Shulchan Aruch Mishnah Berurah, that seemingly has a source in Chachmas HaNista, not a Chachmas HaNigla, is the halacha on Hilchos Shabbos. In number 7 here, the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Shin Chav Ches, while discussing Hilchos Shabbos, quotes the following halacha: that a person could be loichashim, could cite incantations, different whispering, different ideas, al hanachashim v'akravim, on snakes and scorpions, on Shabbos, b'shvil shlo yaziku, in order that don't damage him. And you're not to be concerned that you're transgressing the Av Malacha, one of the 39 Malachas of trapping an animal on Shabbos. So what's the halacha here? That a person can go ahead, there's a snake, and you can cite an incantation, say something, some mystical idea, and the thing will be frozen in its place, and you don't have to worry, you didn't kill it, you trapped it, like putting a net on it. But you don't have to worry about trapping it on Shabbos. And the Shabru over here, he explains that since it's not a natural seiga, it's not a natural form of trapping, all you did was utter some words, therefore it's permissible. It's so permissible that even if the snake or scorpion was not chasing you, it's going the other way. There's no threat of life here, because if there's a threat to human life, a poisonous snake, or a scorpion's coming after you, and there's a threat to human life, then you can even kill it on Shabbos in certain cases, or at least for sure you can trap it on Shabbos. Here we're talking about a case where there's no threat at all to human life, it's totally minding its own business, it's going the other way, you're going your way, and still you can cite this incantation, this lachash, on Shabbos and trap it in its place because you have done nothing. All you have done was utter some words, and says in the Shvu that we're 100% permissible. And he says, the last couple words of Mr. Brew there is Ayin La'el, He says, look previously what I've written in Siman Shin Vav Siv Zayin, and look over there what I've written. So that's what we're going to do now. The next page, the number 9, the Shulchan Aruch, in Siman Shin Vav Siv Zayin, discusses the following halacha. The Shulchan Aruch paskins there that it's permissible. Well, usually the previous halacha is that it's not allowed to measure things on Shabbos. It's a decree the Rabbana, we're afraid you're going to come write things down. It's awesome. However, when it's for a mitzvah purpose, you're allowed to measure things on Shabbos. The first example of the Shulchan Aruch is if someone has to go to the mikvah on Shabbos, let's say a woman has to go to the mikvah on Shabbos, and you're misupik if there's 40 saw in the mikvah or not. You don't know if it's kosher, so you're allowed to measure the mikvah on Shabbos because it's for a mitzvah purpose. What's the next example of the Shulchan Aruch? It's in the middle of Siv Zayin, the second line. The limdoit azur, to measure the belt of mishu chayla, someone who's ill. And then the luchoy shalov k'moshe noigoy sanashim, and then to say incantations on him, like the women have the custom to. Mutter, it's permissible because it's a medida shal mitzvah. So again, to measure the belt, the two prime examples of a measurement of the mitzvah the Shulchan Aruch decides to give us. Number one was measuring a mikvah, which I think we can all understand that. A mikvah is a mitzvah purpose. Number two, to measure the belt of someone who's sick, and then say lechishas on him like women do. It's permissible because that's a medida, that's a measurement of a mitzvah. What? Exactly, that's the question. What on earth is going on here? Measuring the belt of someone who's sick and say the Shulchan Aruch doesn't really explain. And take a glance at the Mishnah, which I quoted in number 10 over there. The Mishnah doesn't really shed too much light on this either. He says it's a medida because the actual measurement of a person's belt is a refuah, and refuah sagrof, healing a person is a mitzvah. And usually on Shabbos we're concerned we don't let you, unless in cases where you're a bona fide chola, we don't let you do refuah on Shabbos. We don't just administer medicine on Shabbos for a chola unless he is defined as a chola in halacha, which the parameters we're not going to discuss right now. But usually we don't give medicine to a stam person on Shabbos. But over here it says in the Shibur, it's not a problem. It's not real refuah, so to speak. It's not physical refuah. It's refuah she'ein bo mamish. It's refuah that has no physical form. It's only a lechisha. It's only an incantation, and therefore it's permissible. So again, you're allowed to measure the belt of the person and say the incantations on him because it's a mitzvah and you're healing him. Like Rav Hirsch Chaim asked, what's going on over here? So I don't really have the direct answer of what's going on over here, but a couple of things I could tell you is that the Tur, which is the earlier source of this halacha, does give a little more explanation of how you do the measuring. It says you measure it 3 times in 3 different ways, and then you say the lechisha. So now you have a little key, one more step closer to halacha that you do it 3 times. But now what do you say? And what are you measuring exactly? Still I don't know. But another thing that was intriguing me over here is the Shulchan Aruch says Kimo Shenogos Hanashim, like the women have the custom to do. I don't know. I know some women, they don't have a custom to do lechishos. Where's the Shulchan Aruch coming from that the custom of women is to say lechishos? So I was thinking as follows. I don't know if this is the source, but this is what I'd like to suggest. The Gemara in Saita on Daf Yud Aleph it darshans the pasuk that we have in the beginning of Sefer Shemais that of Shifra and Puah. Who is Shifra and Puah? The Gemara is very intrigued. Who are these 2 ladies? The Gemara darshans that Shifra was Yocheved and Puah was Miriam. Now, we're going to discuss here Puah. Why was Puah called Miriam? We have Machlokes Rashi and Taisus why Puah was called Miriam. According to Rashi, which is more commonly known Pshat, Rashi explains the reason why Miriam was called Puah was because Miriam, when the babies were born, was she would make nice poo 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 and make sweet pleasant sounds to the baby to make it pleasant. The baby should be happy, and basically she would say poo 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 to the baby, and that's why she got the name Puah. That's Rashi's shot. Taisus quotes Rabbeinu Chananel says another shot. Why was Miriam called Puah? Says Rabbeinu Chananel because Puah was loichashois lechishois yoytzahavlad. She was able to be Puah with her mouth. She gave forth with her mouth different lechishois that were beneficial for childbirth. And Taisha says, and like the custom is still nowadays, women cite incantations at childbirth, and it helps the childbirthing process go easy. End of Taisha. What are those incantations? What do the women say? Taisha doesn't let us know. But at least we see from this Taisha that there is quite an early source in the Torah already, that according to Tosfos, Miriam, who was one of the midwives in Mitzrayim, was chanting or saying these lechishos, these incantations, and helping with the childbirth process. So perhaps that is maybe what the Shulchan Aruch is referring to when he says the women have the custom of citing incantations. Okay. So we have 2 halachas now about lechishos. And the reason why they're both permissible on Shabbos, the case of trapping the animals and the case of healing a person, is because ein bo mamish, there's nothing physical to them, they're just words of the mouth and however they work. Ask of Chaim Kanievsky and say for Derech Hamuna, not so fast. How can that be? Because we have a halacha, Derech Hamuna, the sefer written by Chaim Kanievsky. It's a 5-volume set on the Rambam and Hilchos Zroyim, and it basically like a Mishnah Berurah style sefer where he goes all the practical halachas that negea to Hilchos Zroyim, and part of Hilchos Zroyim is Shemitah, which is coming up next year. So Chaim Kanievsky in the section on Hilchos Shemitah asked the following question. We have a halacha, a fascinating halacha in Shemitah. Shemitah, keep in mind, is the Shabbos of the land. We have a halacha during Shemitah that if you have a tree which is underperforming, there's not much you can do for it. You can't work the field on Shemitah. You're going to have to, basically in most cases, you're going to have to suffer the consequences and wait till next year. The Gemara goes, the Yerushalmi goes so far to say that you can't even do a segula on the tree. What's the segula that people used to do on trees during the other 6 years that you can't do during Shemitah? Excuse me. Yerushalmi says that there's a trick you do is, you go to a tree that's performing well, that's producing a good crop of fruit, you take a branch from that tree, you write on that branch a shtar, so a document, a proclamation, with the following words. I wrote it down over here. You're producing, and this tree is not producing, meaning you take the branch from the good tree, and you now bring it to the bad tree, and you hang this branch on the bad tree, the underperforming tree, and you write on that branch that you should perform like the other tree. Says Yerushalmi, it's prohibited to do that during Shemitah. After the Chaim Kanievsky, I don't understand. There's nothing normal, quote unquote, about this Maisa. This is not a typical farming procedure that we should prohibit during Shemitah. This is a Maisa Segula, so to speak. This is a more mystical thing that you're doing. If we're going to allow on Shabbos to do things which are Segulas, quote unquote, Lechisas, to utter incantation on Shabbos, and we explain the reason why it's permissible, is because in Boy Mamish, there's nothing to them, there's nothing physical to them. Why are we going to prohibit during Shemitah doing a Maisa Segula on a tree? That's the question he asked. Now he offers many possibilities how to answer this question. I'm going to focus where the arrow is in number 11. I'm going to focus on that answer because it brings out a big insight in this idea. He says as follows. There's one slight difference between the halacha by Shemitah and the halacha by Shabbos. The halacha by Shemitah was not that he's just standing by the tree and uttering a lechisha, you're uttering an incantation, you're saying something. You're doing a maisa. You're going to the good tree, you're taking off the branch, you're writing the star, you're putting it on the bad tree, and presto, it's going to work. Now how that works happens to be segula, it happens to be a little esoteric. But you have to do a physical action in order for the segula to work. By a lechisha, all you're doing is using your mouth, all you're doing is uttering words with your mouth, and it works by itself. There's no other physical action attached to it. Therefore he says, it's really the same halacha. On Shabbos, he says, if you want to recite a lechisha, an incantation, and do something physical with it, some action with it, that would also be prohibited. The only heter on Shabbos is uttering an incantation, a lechisha, that is totally words by itself without a maisa. Right, okay, right, that's a good point. Hold on, let's see if we get, I might discuss something tonight, I'll have to begin later. He brings up interesting rioters. What's this riot that even on Shabbos, it will be prohibited to do a Maisa Segula with a physical action accompanied. He brings a riot from the Balei Taisus ala Torah. The Balei Taisus asks, the pasuk says by the Mun, we got a double portion on Friday. Save it for Shabbos. I cannot tell you have Lechem Mishnah nowadays on Shabbos. Says the pasuk in Parashat B'Shalach that whatever you want to save for Shabbos, you have to bake it before Shabbos. You have to prepare, bake, and cook your food before Shabbos. Ask the Balei Taisus, why do you have to do that before Shabbos? We know the mun was magical. Put it in your mouth. Have in mind. Think about what you want it to taste like. And presto, you had a delicious meal. Why is the Torah telling us you have to bake it or cook it before Shabbos? Says the Balei Taisus, because if you would not prepare it physically before Shabbos, then you would just take the mun on Shabbos and put it in your mouth and chew it. And while you're chewing it, a physical action, think about what you want it to taste like. That's a Maisa Tikkun on Shabbos. That's a Maisa of fixing something, of doing something on Shabbos, and that will be prohibited. Says Chaim Kanievsky, what's going on over here? There's nothing, you're not doing any major action Tikkun over here. Elamai, what do you see? That it's a similar concept to a lechisha, that if you're doing a incantation over here, you're thinking it, but it's accompanied by a Maisa of chewing, and the chewing, says Chaim Kanievsky, is what made the mun change form. In case you want to know that, what made the mun change its taste was when you start chewing it, that will be considered a mice on Shabbos, and therefore he says if you'll be enchanting a snake, and with your enchanting you'll be doing some other type of physical action, that will be prohibited. Okay, so now we have some basic halachic parameters of the permissibilities of the lechisha. But now, let's try to define as best as we can what exactly is the lechisha. What are you saying? So, I don't know the exact formula, but I know what it's not. The Gemara in Shavuos says, Vavo and Beis tells us that it's usher l'israpos b'divrei Torah. It's usher to heal ourselves through words of Torah. What does that mean? If someone gets a wound, someone gets hurt, and he looks at it and he starts saying to the wound, some psukim, and he says, through the koyach of this pasuk, I want this wound, this ailment to get better. Says the Gemara, that's usher. Even so, says the Gemara, in certain cases, the Gemara discusses certain parameters of the case, by doing that you'll be chayiv misa. Pretty severe. What is allowed, says the Gemara? As we all know, you're allowed to daven for somebody, you're allowed to say psukim, but derech tefillah we say tehillim, we can learn for the schus of somebody, but there there's a fine line distinction. We're not saying the kedusha, the halakite from the words should heal the wound, should heal this ailment. We're saying in the schus of our davening, in the schus of our learning, that should be a merit for the sick person. But we're not healing with the words of Torah itself. So it's not that the lechisha, it can't be that the lechisha incantation we're citing is a pasuk, and we want to heal to that pasuk, because that would be awesome. Right?
Isn't it just a spitting that the Gemara says?
Well, that's right. The case of spitting is when you chayiv misa.
But the isser,
the isser, you chayiv misa when you spit. I don't want to get involved in all cases, but the isser is even when you say the pasuk, and the point of you saying the pasuk is you want the kedusha of that pasuk to heal the wound. Okay, we'll look it up later. The Seichemed in Mareches Halamid brings down from the Chidah and other poskim that now, because the Gemara in Shabbos, the truth is the whole blot in Gemara in Shabbos of Samach Zayin, which lists various lechishois, various incantations that were familiar in the times of the Gemara. Some of them are names of the Malachim, saying certain names, Shemus and Malachim in certain ways were powerful, and certain lechishois were just seemingly nonsensical words being put together, and Rashi and other Farshim will go on and explain what these words mean, but again, there were seemingly nonsensical statements that had a certain power. Right to say Chemed L'Shem L'Chidah, that these two categories of L'Chishos are both going to be prohibited in Zman Hazeh for two separate reasons. The types that discuss the various names of the Malachim, which are Mashbiya the Malachim, which bind the Malachim to do our bidding, are very dangerous. Because by doing them, by saying them improperly, you're running the risk of Malachim coming to damage you. Who do you think you are that you can just tell the Malachim how they should act and what they should do to you? So first of all, says the Chidah and Sechemed says, passing from other poskim, that stay away from those type of lechishas, those type of incantations where you're mentioning Malachim's name and you're being mashbiya them because you're playing with fire, quote unquote. You don't want the Malachim coming down and then you're not worthy, so to speak, of it being done, and then you're going to get burnt. The second type of lechisha, which is saying these sentences which are seemingly don't have an exact sensical way to them. The Seichemed quotes from the Maharshal in his Sefer Yam Shlomo, which forbade using them, and he writes the reason why it's forbidden is because we don't know exactly how to do it. And what's going to happen is someone's going to say, okay, well I have this and this ailment, the Gemara says, say this sentence and you'll be healed. The guy will sit down, say the sentence, and it's not going to work. What's going to happen? He's going to start making start making fun of Chazal. Now, unbeknownst to him, he didn't understand how to do it. He didn't follow the directions properly. But he's not going to judge himself benefit of the doubt like that. He's going to say he followed directions properly. He read the article Gemara. It says what to do, and it's not working. So the Marshal says, therefore, it's usher b'zman hazeh because we don't know properly how to execute them, and therefore he says they're usher. But Tzadok HaKohen in Likutei Ma'amorim says, he also says it's prohibited to use lechishas nowadays. He said, the way I understood at least what he says, is that the reason why it's also is because the koyach of lechishos, the koyach of these incantations are through what? Are through our peh. He says, who can say nowadays that their peh is still a peh kadosh? Never said a word of Lashon Hara, never said lechilas, never said nipple peh, never used their mouth for something that's inappropriate. The second you have used your mouth, so to speak, for something which is not of pure kedusha, says the Tzadok HaKohen, so who are you to utter a lechisha which is working to koyach hakedusha and to work for you? That's what Tzadok HaKohen says that's not going to work. Whichever way you want to go, at the end of the day, it's not going to work. So, here we are. The guy's sick. He's not well. The Shulchan Aruch says you can say lechishas on Shabbos. Hirsch Chaim asked me, but what do? We don't know how to say lechishas. We daven for a person on Shabbos. We daven during the week. We want to heal the guy. So what should we do? What other skula, so to speak, do we still have that it's still usable nowadays that the poskim don't frown upon, so to speak. So I heard there's a Gemara in Bava Basra. The Gemara in Bava Basra, Kuf Tez Zayin, says as follows. Darsh Rav Pinchas Bar Chama says, Kol mi sheyesh lechoyle b'teich beisay. Anyone has a sick person in his house, what should he do? Yelech etzol chacham, he should go to a Talmid Chacham, yivakesh lo racham, and the Talmid Chacham should daven. So simple reading of the Gemara, like I just translated it, is that you should go to a Talmid Chacham, go to a respected Torah scholar, and ask him to daven. And that is a way, a personal benefit of Refuah Shalema. So I heard always from my Rebbe, Michal Shurkin Shlita, he used to say over, the Meiri's trying this Gemara. The Meiri has a fascinating insight to this Gemara. He changes the Pashup Shot, which is the last Ma'amokam I quoted over here. The Meiri writes that a person always has to be confident that Tefillah works. Tefillah has the custom of Atzol Gezerah to have many places in Shas. So if you have a tzar or a chayla in your house, says Meiri, what should you do? The way the Meiri explains the Gemara is that you should go to a Talmid Chacham and ask him to teach you how to daven. Not that you should go to Talmid Chacham and tell Talmid Chacham to daven for you, but go to the Chacham, and the Meiri writes, V'yilmad hei menu dakei atzilos. We should learn, we should aspire from the Talmidei Chacham how to properly daven. So, we're not left with nothing. We have, Baruch Hashem, every generation has Talmidei Chacham that it needs, and if we have a chayla, and as we know, often we'll go to Talmidei Chachamim, and we'll ask them for brachas. Now, but I heard from Yaakov Hillel 10 years ago, in the summer of 2004, he spoke in Chicago, I was there for the Kabbalah. He said a very interesting point. Yaakov Hillel is the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Ahavat Shalom in Yerushalayim, a tremendous Mekubal, and a tremendous Baki in Teres HaMigla and Nisr. And he writes as follows. He says, we have to realize, we have to trust, we have a system of Yeshivas, of Rosh Yeshivas, of Baalei Mesorah, of Rebbes. How do they happen? We open up the New York Times one day and look at the front page and see, there's this rabbi who just popped out of nowhere, he's a great Kabbalist, everyone's running him for blessings. He says, if you find out that this guy's a great rabbi from reading the New York Times, then that's a telltale sign that he's not one of us. We have a system where Bacham go to yeshiva, they sit and they learn, and they learn, and they learn. They get shimush from Talmidei Chachamim, they listen to shiurim, they ask shalos from our regular rabbanim who have Messiah. Ultimately, they develop and become the next Gedolei Hador. But who knows about them first, the New York Times, or the Rosh Yeshivas, the rabbanim and the Admorim? Or the Chacham, if you're in a Sfari Yeshiva. They know about the future Gedolim first, not us. If we think we're discovering somebody who is coming out of a cave, quote unquote, and he's going to save us from all types of ailments, then we're going the wrong way. Yaakov Hillel, he was very short about this. He says we have to trust our system. We have to know that we have Talmidei Chacham, the same people, the same Rava and Rav Zera who we have throughout Shas, who were bucking Teres HaNigla, they were bucking Teres HaNisr. We have to go to the people that we know and trust for our regular Gedolim, and with them we will have proper guidance, and with them we will be zeichet to Siyat Shema and everything we do. Thank you very much. Shkach for coming. I made it shorter than... What?